Welcome back to the Trails Unpacked channel. Today we are going to be talking about clothing for thru hiking. I'm going to be taking you inside my closet to show you what I wore on both my thru hikes of the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail. Now, clothing can be an item that can add up in weight, either because you carry way too many clothing or you don't have the right clothes, which I definitely made those mistakes on both of my thru hikes. So I'm going to be giving you tips on items that I really liked and then items that I would maybe trade out. Now, when you are looking at clothing for a thru hike, it is likely that those clothing items are going to change throughout the duration of the hike. You are going to be out there for 5-6 months. The weather changes within those months, but the weather also changes within 24 hours. So you are going to want to have clothes that are versatile and be comfortable with having clothing items that you might begin the hike out with, that you might send home, that you might have sent out to you, or even bounce up to trail. Now, when we look at our thru hiking clothes, it's really going to be dependent on the trail that you go on and what the weather is going to be like at those times. So there are standard items that you'll see people lean towards when they're thru hiking the Appalachian Trail or thru hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, just because the climate of those hikes. Now, when we're looking at the clothing breakdown within those hikes, usually these items will break down into 3 categories. And that is going to be clothes that you hike in, clothes that you sleep in, and then clothes that make, what I like to say, maybe guest appearances that you might be wearing every now and again just based off of the weather. So it's going to be things like a puffy or your rain gear or even a hat and gloves. So let's get to it. I'm going to show you what I wore on my thru hikes and give you some little tips. So this is the outfit that I wore when I was physically hiking the Appalachian Trail. It's just a standard sports shirt that I got from Target, and then some athletic shorts that I got from Amazon. Both items that I would probably wear in my everyday life while I'm working out, so it transitioned well to thru hiking. Now the next thing is this buff that's in my head. It seconds or doubles as a headband, but then also in the colder temperatures I could roll it down across my neck as a gaiter to keep you warm. And then the last thing are my socks, which are Darn Tough socks. I prefer the quarter or like the crew length socks, and I would carry 2 pairs of socks on both of my thru hikes of the Appalachian Trail and PCT. I carried 2 pairs of Darn Tough socks. So in the instances where it was colder, and it was pretty cold at the beginning of my thru hike of the Appalachian Trail, I started at the first week of March. So there were times where I saw snow and it was in, the low 30s or below freezing. So it was helpful to have some hiking items that I could throw on top just to help warm myself up. Now, the biggest thing here is these things are layerable. So for my pants, I'm able to layer these items on top of shorts. That way they're easy to put on and take off. And I'm not having to do a whole huge wardrobe change in the middle of the hike. I could just take them off if it got too hot. While I like the layerability of these pants, these specific pants I would not take on a thru hike again just because they are pretty heavy. So there are another pair of pants that I thru hiked the PCT in that have kind of the same functionality, but I liked a lot better because they were lighter weight. Now for my top, this is a mid-layer. This mid-layer I absolutely love, but not for thru hiking. it is way too heavy. This mid layer almost feels like it traps in heat as well as my puffy does. So it felt like it was almost doing double duty. A lot of times I felt like I was overheating, even if I was just wearing the mid layer and using it to hike in the morning with when it was cold, I would immediately have to take it off. So this was an item that I like for my everyday life, but I ended up switching out on the PCT to a different mid layer. And then lastly is my puffy. This puffy is in Enlightened Equipment. Now when you're looking at puffies or shells or something that is a little bit warmer, you're gonna have two big options, and that's gonna be getting a down or a synthetic. Now depending on the weather that you're gonna be in is likely gonna depend on which item that you want. With that being said, down does weigh a little bit less. It's usually a little bit lighter and can be a little bit warmer, but if it gets wet, it takes a long time to dry out. Synthetic on the opposite side can be a little bit heavier and not as warm, or it needs more fabric to have the same warmth as down does, but when it gets wet, it's gonna dry out a lot faster. So this jacket that I have right now is the women's Torrid Enlightened Equipment puffy, and it is synthetic. And I mainly picked this out because I wanted something that was gonna dry fast, especially on the Appalachian Trail. It's just known for rain, so I was anticipating that things might get wet. So this jacket held up really well. It's something that I had on both of my thru hikes and I still wear in my everyday life. So this is what I slept in on the Appalachian Trail. I would say for the first couple of months while it was still cold. Now I did end up switching my night outfit into something different on trail as it got a little bit warmer, but for the colder weeks or colder months, this is what I slept in, which is a thermal top, smart wool, and then these bottoms are Cuddle Dud bottoms. If you haven't heard of these before, they can be found on Amazon, Target, Walmart, I think even Costco. They're lightweight, but they're also super cheap and warm. So if I had to do this again, I would get the Cuddle Dud bottoms and a Cuddle Dud top, just because I found that they work just as well as the smart wool does at a fraction of the price. Now the last thing you'll see are my feet, where I'm wearing my Enlightened Equipment booties. They are like little sleeping bags for your feet. I absolutely love these. They're just another footwear option for sleeping in that will keep your feet warm and dry, because the booties, you don't wear them when you're hiking. So I really like these. They only weigh a couple of ounces, so definitely a worthwhile luxury item. So this is my outfit of the day on the Pacific Crest Trail. This is what I wore while I was actively hiking, which is a long sleeve sun shirt and then just another pair of athletic shorts. Now with this sun shirt, again long sleeves, the UV rays are pretty harsh out there and it is hot, so any extra shade that you can have, especially when it comes to a hood. So if you can get a sun shirt with a hood, that is going to be helpful. Also a baseball cap and sunglasses for sun protection. Now the thing I love most about this sun shirt, and it is a Jolly Gear sun shirt, is that it has buttons. So you can unbutton it just to make a cross breeze whenever it is a little bit hot. It also has some zippers here for extra storage. And then I also like these little thumb holes it has that act almost as like a sun glove. And then similarly, through hiking in Darn Tough socks, 2 pairs of socks. This is what I wore while I was sleeping on the Pacific Crest Trail. As you can see, there's not as big of a change in this outfit as there was on the Appalachian Trail. That's because the temperatures were pretty mild. The only thing I really changed out was my shirt. And then of course my Enlightened Equipment booties made a reappearance here. There were times that it was a little bit chillier on the PCT, mainly in the Sierra Mountains and then as we got closer into Washington. So I did have a pair of pants similar to on the Appalachian Trail that were easy to take on and off and could go over shorts pretty easily. These are from Enlightened Equipment and they're their wind pants. They are surprisingly warmer than you think they are, and they're super light. So I liked these pants better than the ones that I had on the Appalachian Trail to add a little bit of extra warmth. Now, the shirt that I'm wearing is a mid-layer from Cinchi Designs, and as you can see here, it is breathable. You can almost see through my hand. A mid-layer should not be as heavy as your puffy, so it should be lighter than that, but it should be a little bit warmer than what your normal everyday shirt is. And this puff or this mid-layer fits that criteria where it's just a little extra warmth than my short sleeve shirt. Then some other miscellaneous items. You had gaiters, and if you don't know what these are, they hook on to your shoe and almost make a seal from your shoe to your ankle, and they help to keep out dirt or other debris. It really helps with blister prevention, and I had these on both trails. The other items were a beanie and gloves. I would not overthink these items. These will likely be things that you send yourself on trail or maybe start off with and send home or even bounce up trail. So get something that's warm, but again, don't overthink them. You don't have to go into a huge deep dive of what's the best beanie to bring. Undergarments. I had 2 pair of the Icebreaker antimicrobial underwear. So I would hike in one and then have an extra pair. And then over here are the sports bras. I wore the green one on the Appalachian Trail, and then the pink one I wore when I was on the Pacific Crest Trail. Both of these are athletic sports bras that I wore in my everyday life and knew that I liked them and were comfortable. So again, transitioned well to trail. Those are the clothing items that I brought on both of my thru hikes. I hope that this video gives you a little bit of tips or insight to what to bring on your thru hike. And again, that the clothing is going to change as you hike. Please like, subscribe, or even comment other items or any other topics you would like us to cover. Thank you.